and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the Insidious franchise as suggested by these lovely subscribers here. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on the Insidious films that revolve around the Lambert family. So obviously we're going to start off with the first film in the franchise, Insidious. We meet the Lambert family, who seem to be in the early stages of moving into their new home. The Lambert family consists of Josh, Renee, and their children, Dalton, Forrester, and baby Callie. So the house that they moved into is already giving off creepy, weird vibes. At some point, Renee puts her books on a bookshelf, and when she goes back to the bookshelf, they're on the floor. When Renee questions the kids about it, they deny moving the books at all. You would think that would ring off alarms, but given the morning that they're having, it looks very chaotic. Renee is trying to prepare breakfast for everybody. Callie is crying. This seems like a lot of chaos. So I'm sure the books being moved was the least of her worries. And this scene is honestly nightmare fuel for me. I think it's just because of the chaos. There's a lot of movement. I would immediately be overstimulated and have to find a quiet corner somewhere. But Renee is muscling through, and we love her for that. Josh works as a teacher, so he goes off to work. Once Renee has dropped Dalton and Forrester off for school, things calm down quite a bit. While Renee stays at home with Callie, she's unpacking the house and working on her music. And it seems that Renee feels unfulfilled in her career just based off of the lyrics to her songs. In one of her songs, she talks about moving west and becoming somebody and not being somebody. I like to think that Renee's fantasy or dream to move to the west has something to do with their daughter's name being Callie, as in like California. Nighttime rolls around, Josh gets home, and the kids are already home with Renee, and it seems like they're having family time, except for Dalton, who's upstairs playing by himself when he sees that the attic door is opening on its own, which is not good. If I have kids, I feel like I would want to caution them about this type of thing. I'm like, there are things that shouldn't be happening. So if you see it, say something about it. So Dalton goes into the attic to explore. He climbs a ladder. One of the steps breaks. He falls. He hits his little noggin, and he starts to hear a creaking coming from the shadows. I don't know if Dalton sees something, but he gets freaked out and he screams. Josh and Renee run up the stairs, and they see that he's fallen, but we know he didn't scream because of the fall. Like, he fell, hit his little noggin, and was fine, and didn't scream until he seen or heard some creepy ass shit in the attic. So they don't question him about like, hey, did you see something creepy up here? They just think that he's fallen and just lecture him about exploring around the house by himself. So they tug Dalton into bed. Everybody's chilling. Everybody's getting ready for bed. Renee and Josh are in their bedroom. They're getting moisturized. And Renee is confiding in Josh about her day and is saying that she didn't get much done. And it seems that they have an arrangement where Josh works and Renee stays home to work on her music. And honestly, I feel like the house as is not good for creative vibes at all. It's very dark. The feng shui is all wrong. The energy is off. I don't like that for her. And don't get me started on the morning of trying to get everybody together, because damn, it would be one thing if they had one kid, maybe two kids, but three? Whoa. I'm sure those kids are a blessing to them, but goddamn. The next morning, it's basically the same shit. Renee is trying to make breakfast. It's a little chaotic in the kitchen, except Dalton isn't there. Josh goes to wake up Dalton, and little man is not waking up. Josh and Renee take Dalton to the hospital, but the doctors can't seem to find anything wrong with him. Other than the fact that he isn't waking up, the doctors are not able to provide any answers to what's wrong with Dalton. Therefore, they're not able to provide any solutions. 3 months later, a whole 3 months later, Dalton is home. Conscious, no, but home, yes. So Renee is home with Dalton and Callie. She's downstairs trying to play her music, but she's just not in it. And can you blame her? 3 months of no progress with Dalton. 3 months of no answers from the doctors. Like, I'm sure she's not in a great headspace. So Renee is sulking at her piano when she hears whispering coming from Callie's baby monitor. It sounds like a man voice, and he's whispering over and over, there's nothing you can do. Renee walks to the stairs and realizes that she can hear whispering not just from the baby monitor, but upstairs in Callie's room. And I'm like, at what point do you spring into action and go get your fucking baby? Because I'm like, you hear that shit. I'm watching you hear that shit, Renee. Go get her. So the whispering is getting louder and louder, and then the voice shouts, give it to me now. So then finally Renee runs upstairs. Poor Callie is already at the edge of her crib just waiting for somebody to come and get her. And so Renee grabs Callie. She's looking around the room. She looks in the closet. It's completely empty. I'm like, as a grown man, if you're gonna make demands and shit, maybe not try the baby. Maybe not the baby. I don't give a fuck if you're a spirit or not. Why are you yelling at the baby to carry out your demands? Callie can't even talk. All she can do is cry. So it's nighttime again. Renee is getting Forrester ready for bed, and she sees that he's gotten an award from school that day, but he didn't say anything to his parents. And that is a self-aware kid. He's like, they don't care about my silly award. Dalton's in a coma. Renee is assuring Forrester that she's proud of him for his award and is going to tell Josh that he did something good at school. There's no telling what the award was for, but you know, he's doing good somewhere. So Renee is tucking Forrester into bed. Forrester is asking if he can change rooms because he's scared of Dalton. Why, you may ask? He says because he doesn't like how Dalton moves around at night, how he gets up at night and walks around. And that's it. Like, that's literally how the conversation ends. Renee just kind of receives what he says and then does fucking nothing. It doesn't say anything either. That's just how we, the audience, sees the conversation end. And I'm like, girl, I need you to lock in, Renee, please. When I tell you I would have been pushing for answers, I would have been like, so when you say walking around, you mean resting in his bed? Like, can you elaborate more on that? That literally reminds me of the story I told you about my sister and her teddy bear from when we were kids. Don't you love how we have inside jokes? And poor Forrester, later on, he's in his bed, and it's like his room and his door is right across from Dalton's room and Dalton's door. Like, all he has to do is peek down the hall. He can do this little number from his bed and see Dalton's room. And we hear this loud ass creaking and cracking coming from Dalton's room. So Forrester gets up and runs to shut his door, which I would have barricaded myself in my room. Either that or I would have ran away. When Forrester shuts the door, he hears thudding. And I'm like, how is nobody else in the house hearing that? I can only assume that Josh and Renee's room is somewhere like off yonder. So Renee and Josh are in bed with their sad ass gray ass pajamas to match their sad ass gray ass house. And Renee is telling Josh about the baby monitor situation. If that were me, we would have started out hot. I mean hot with the conversation with Forrester. I would have like, he's saying that he sees Dalton moving around at night. We need to do something about that. Renee is telling Josh about the baby monitor situation, and Josh is being a fucking stereotype, a basic husband in a horror film that doesn't believe his wife when she says that there's weird shit going on in the house. And Josh is like, maybe it's interference. If I was Renee, I would have put that baby monitor on his side of the nightstand. I was like, well, here, you deal with the fucking interference thing, because I'm not doing this shit. I didn't sign up for this. Just as Renee and Josh are having this conversation, there is a banging on the front door. Josh is like, what the fuck? And he goes downstairs to check it out. And there's literally no one there. And then there's more banging on the door, but again, there's nobody at the door. Meanwhile, Callie starts crying. Renee goes to check on her, and there is a whole ass figure behind her crib. And of course, Renee starts screaming. She's like calling for Josh. She doesn't even step inside the room. She said, let me get Josh to look at this first. And I'm like, girl, if you don't take the 2 steps in to grab her, just snatch her up real quick. Get your baby out of the room. So Josh runs upstairs. The room, of course, is fucking empty. There's nothing fucking there. And then their security alarm starts going off. Josh tells Renee to take Forrester and Callie and to go wait in Dalton's room. Josh goes downstairs and the front door is wide open. Not just a little crack. I'm talking number 17 spread eagle open. And I feel like that is a terrifying situation in a house that big, because somebody could have ran up in that bitch and they could just, now you got a roommate. It is what it is. Now you got a fucking roommate. Now someone's probably hiding in your goddamn house. If the same situation happened here, well, you're in one of two you're in one of two places, bitch. I'm gonna find you. Josh is going through the house and he has a little firewood poke thing from a fireplace, whatever the fuck that's called. He's going through the house, leaves the door just gaping, just wide fucking open behind him, and goes and searches around the house. Of course, he doesn't find anybody. The alarm starts going off again. He shuts the door and cuts the alarm off, which there's no way me and my family would have been spending the night after that. I feel like he didn't check thoroughly. They have these long ass curtains he didn't check behind. Like, there's just too much. I would have tried to ride up them stairs and be like, all right, gang, pack your shit. We're not staying here tonight. So Josh is at work, school. He calls Renee and tells her that he has to work late, which is giving bullshit. Like, he's stuttering, trying to like come up with something. Like, he's like, oh, they're telling me, I mean, I gotta, and da da da. And I'm like, dude, if you're gonna lie and pull some shit like that, at least practice it, at least rehearse it in the mirror. If you don't believe it, nobody else is gonna believe it. Lock in. Is that a Jigsaw Easter egg? Josh is having very cryptic flashbacks of his childhood that'll come into play later. So the next day, Renee is talking with Dalton's nurse. Renee is confiding in the nurse, and she's basically telling her how the doctors have given up on Dalton and they can't figure out what's wrong with him, so they just kind of have given up. So the nurse goes to change Dalton's sheets, and Renee is like, no, I got it. So the nurse leaves. Renee goes to change Dalton's sheets, and there is a bloody, unhuman-like handprint by his feet. And just imagine if the nurse would have seen that, she would have called CPS immediately. Cut to Josh, who is sleeping. And I'm like, if you were gonna be sleeping, you could have took your ass home. But when he wakes up, he has a voice message from Renee, basically telling him to get his ass home. So Josh pulls up to the house. Renee is sitting outside and she is done with his shit. She's confronting Josh and she's like, you've never had to work late. You've worked at this school for years. You've never had to work late. And then Josh fixes his fucking mouth to say, well, I have no choice. I have to pay for Dalton's medical bills. And this is exactly why you
never let a man take care of you financially.
Only because, like, if he was like truly like putting in work and working late and shit to provide for his family, sure. But he's like definitely avoiding being home. And that's basically what Renee tells Josh. She's saying that the house is haunted, and she's saying that Josh is avoiding coming home because he avoids difficult situations. And Josh is like, no, I'm not avoiding, like, I'm just handling it in my own way. And I'm like, you handle shit in your own way when it's not you and a whole fucking family that you have to take care of. Like, Josh, lock in. And it's like, if you don't want to be in your own house because of the bad vibes it gives, like, imagine Renee, who we barely see outside of this goddamn fucking house. I almost thought Renee was a ghost as much as she's in the damn house. So Renee throws the bloody handprint sheet at Josh and she runs inside, which I'm like, Renee, I just don't like her approach on this. I feel like I would have handled that a little bit differently. If I felt that my house was haunted and I'm trying to explain this to my husband, I'm gonna start off with evidence. Just right away, start off with proof. He would have pulled up to the house and I would have been holding the sheet up like a fucking welcome home banner. We need to get the fuck out of here. And honestly, not even that. He would have been at work. The exact timestamp that I seen the print is the exact timestamp that he would have received a picture text message and me saying, hey, we're not going to be home when you get here because there's some other shit going on. So Josh is sleeping on the couch. Everybody is in bed. And I'm like, holy shit, why are we still here right now? I can only assume that they are still at the house because of Dalton. I imagine it would be difficult to transport him or move him somewhere while he's hooked up to all his machines and whatnot. And it's like, okay, they decided to stay home. But what are these fucking sleeping arrangements? Callie is sleeping in the room with Renee. But I'm like, what about Forrester? What about Dalton? He's the one with the bloody handprint on his bed. Y'all, are y'all trying to look after him? Are y'all scared of him? At least y'all could look after Forrester then if y'all wanted to, like, isolate Dalton, given that there's rumors, word on the crop, he's walking around at night. I don't like that. Dalton has creepy ass handprints that appear on his window. Meanwhile, in the bedroom with Renee and Callie, there's somebody pacing back and forth right outside her window. They appear inside and then attack her. And of course, Renee is freaking out. She's screaming for Josh. Josh runs upstairs. Callie's crying. There's nobody in the room when Josh gets there. There's nobody in the room when Josh gets there. Renee is crying. She's like, oh my gosh, please believe me. There's shit going on. And he's like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? And she's like, get me up out this fucking house. And let me tell you, Josh got them out that fucking house. They move into a new house. And I'm like, okay, Josh, there's some points there. Because he could have easily continued to be a stereotypical husband in a horror film and been like, oh, there's nothing here. Maybe it's your hormones. Are you on your period? So they're moving into their new house and we meet Lorraine, who is Josh's mother. And she seems like a vibe. She seems very, very nice. She's helping Renee unpack and she's surprised when she sees a family photo of Josh, Renee, and the kids. And she's shocked that Josh stood for a picture. This is information that'll come into play later as well. Renee is at home. She's cleaning. She puts on a cute little record to vibe out to while she's cleaning. She goes outside to take out the trash and the record scratches and a different song starts playing. It's Tiptoe in the Tulips by Tiny Tim, which in any other circumstance would be a vibe. If you've seen the pilot episode of SpongeBob, it could be a fun, playful time. But in this instance, this song is forever ruined for me because of this fucking movie. Renee is taking out the trash. She looks in the fucking window and there's a little boy dancing in there.
Hell no, man. What the fuck?
Renee goes back inside the house and the little boy is gone and the music has stopped playing. Me and my sisters got this movie on Redbox and we were like, oh my God. So me and my sisters are watching this. We pause it because we're like, holy shit, like, ew, that was fucking creepy as shit. We got to rewind it to watch it again because duh. And we see that the little boy was in the house already and he was just randomly facing a wall as Renee was walking through the house. For me in scary movies, the little subtle quiet scares, those are the ones that always have me fucked up the most. It's not the jump scares, it's that shit that makes me go But as I was saying, she goes back inside, which it fucking sucks that she has to go back inside. Imagine if she didn't have kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, if you have kids, like, no shame, no hate, I love that for you. But imagine if she didn't have kids. She was already outside. She could just fucking leave. But no, she has to go back inside because she has a family to take care of. She goes back inside. The music cuts off. The boy runs by. She's searching through the house to find the fucking boy, which is bold as fuck. And she goes into Dalton's room. She's investigating this wardrobe or this chest. And then the boy pops out and he runs. And then Renee just sits there. She just kind of sits on the ground and starts crying. I would have grabbed him by his fucking collar and been like, young man, I would have like, please don't tell me that you were in the old house with us. And don't tell me that you watched us searching on homes.com for hours and hours, trying to find a new house within the district with no HOA. And then you watched us pack up all of our shit, come to this house, unpack all of our shit, just to tell me that moving houses wasn't gonna do shit. I'm like, I know that is not the case. So Josh gets home. Renee is talking with the priest. Priest very quickly leaves. And Josh, Renee, and Lorraine are sitting in the kitchen. And Renee is telling Josh basically what happened. She was like, there was somebody in the house. Whatever happened at the last house is happening in this house. And Josh starts mocking her for calling a priest. Are you completely just gonna dismiss the fact that she said that somebody was in y'all's house? So Lorraine jumps in and she's trying to tell Josh that whatever Renee is seeing is real. And Lorraine said the other night she had a dream about the house. In the dream, she went into Dalton's room and there was somebody there. She asked what they were doing there and they said that they were a visitor and that they wanted Dalton. We are gonna refer to this visitor as Sasha. And then Sasha, for no reason at all, is behind Josh. So of course Lorraine freaks out and starts screaming. And of course, Sasha is nowhere to be found when Josh looks behind him. And I'm like, I need Josh to see something. And oh my gosh, Josh finally sees some shit. They hear a ruckus in Dalton's room. They go run in there. Dalton's room is fucking trash and Dalton is laying on the floor. And I'm like, okay, if that's not enough for you, like you heard that shit. And now you're looking at that shit. Lorraine sees the mess in Dalton's room and she says, I know somebody that we can call that can help with this. Which I'm like, damn, way to come in fucking clutch, Lorraine, because who the fuck do you call in a situation like that? Then we're introduced to Specs and Tucker, who work with Elise, who is friends with Lorraine. Elise is not there. Specs and Tucker are basically there to kind of vet the situation, to make sure everything is on the up and up for her to come through and do whatever the fuck she has to do. Oh my gosh, Specs and Tucker are completely unserious. Tucker's eating a Hot Pocket, which is like, I guess like sustenance isn't something you look at and go, I can't take this seriously. But in this instance, that's what it's giving. Specs and Tucker have gadgets aplenty. One of the gadgets measures changes in UV lights. So Tucker is looking throughout the house and he has his little UV light thing. And then he sees like two creepy ass women standing down the hall. So that's enough for Tucker. He's like, okay, we can call Elise now. We meet Elise. She's super sweet. She's a vibe. And when Josh goes to introduce himself, she's like, oh, I already know you. Me and your mom go way back. So Elise is walking through the house. She confirms that the house has bad vibes in it. They go into Dalton's room. Elise asks to keep the light off. And Elise explains that she's going to tell Specs what she sees and then he's going to draw it. So she sees something in Dalton's room and she starts describing it to Specs. She's describing somebody with a red face, a black body, and it's definitely giving Sasha. Like it sounds like it's for sure Sasha. As Specs is drawing and Elise is explaining, fucking Renee is like, what do you see? And I'm like, bitch, are you interrupting her right now? I don't know why that irks me so badly. Sit down. Like I'm sure y'all are gonna have a conversation about everything in just a moment. Let Elise do her fucking job. And then to add insult to injury, she runs up, snatches Specs' drawing, and then goes and turns on the light. Do you want her help or not? Elise explains that Dalton's fall had nothing to do with his current state, that he's not in a coma. He explains that the house isn't haunted, but Dalton is haunted. And I would have been like, great. So that means we need to get rid of Dalton, it sounds like, for the greater good. And Elise explains that Dalton is able to astral project, meaning while he's sleeping, his like consciousness is able to leave his physical body and he goes and travels. Not like travels to like Mexico or Jamaica or Paris, he goes somewhere else. And she explains that Dalton thinks that he's in a dream, so he's not afraid. So he's been going out farther and farther into the further is what she calls it. And the further is a realm with no real time and it's filled with tortured souls. Does not seem like a place for a kid to be. That's not where a kid can be a kid. And because Dalton's consciousness hasn't returned back to his body is now real estate for those tortured souls who want to live again. They want to go in, they want to like blues could do, we can do into Dalton so they can live again. She explains that there's a demon. We know him as Sasha, and he is the closest to possessing Dalton. Elise is saying that there's something that they can try to save him, and Josh immediately starts shutting it down. And I'm like, Josh, please don't piss me off right now. And I understand that he hasn't witnessed everything to the extent of Renee, but he definitely seen the bloody handprint sheet, and he definitely, like, in real time, you heard the ruckus in Dalton's room. You went in there and you seen the ruckus with your own eyes. You didn't see the occurrence of said ruckus, but make it make sense. What did you think that was? And not only does Josh shut it down, but he's like being kind of like an asshole about it too. He's like accusing Elise of trying to exploit Dalton and his condition. And I'm like, this is absolutely insane. And so on that note, Elise is like, okay, say less, I'm out of here. And she's like, I completely understand, good luck, and she leaves. And I know that's right. I would have been out of there too. I don't even want to fucking be here. So Elise, Specs, and Tucker leave, and Josh goes into Dalton's room and he's talking to him, and he's like, please, like, you know, give me a sign. Where are you? And one of Dalton's drawings falls to the ground. And the drawing is literally fucking Sasha. And we've already seen a drawing of Sasha via Specs and Elise. Josh is looking at Dalton's wall of drawings, and there's a picture Dalton drew literally showing him astral projecting. And like, he literally wrote it on there, I'm astral projecting. He didn't write those exact words, but he basically describes it all in crayon. And some of these drawings are creepy as fuck. And I'm like, they didn't notice that shit? Like, Renee and Josh didn't see these creepy ass drawings and think, I should probably ask about this. Where the fuck did he see this shit? Josh is finally seeing the light. He believes Renee, fucking finally, and they call Elise back. So Elise and the gang come back. They're all in Dalton's room, and she's giving them the rundown about what's about to go down. She basically tells them that they're gonna see some crazy ass shit. They have a camera in there that can detect changes in the atmosphere and temperature. She's gonna be talking. They're not gonna be able to hear her. Only Specs is gonna be able to hear her through this very interesting doodad that looks creepy as fuck. Elise is talking, and Specs is saying whatever she says out loud so the class can hear. The camera starts going off, and they finally reach Dalton. And Dalton is saying that wherever he is, he can't see, and Specs is telling Dalton to follow his voice. Dalton is telling Specs to shut the fuck up because Sasha is gonna hear him. It hurt him. We hear Dalton's heart monitor speeding up. We see the camera is flashing more frequently, and it's very scary. Poor Dalton from the other side tells Specs that they heard him, and he's calling out for help. Mind you, Dalton is speaking through Elise, and then somebody else starts speaking through Elise, and whoever it is giving them the fucking business. I mean, cussing them the fuck out. Just all sorts of profanities and threats. Things are getting really intense. The camera's flashing. Specs is trying to keep up with all the curse words and all the threats. Elise passes out. We hear that Dalton's heart monitor has gone flat, and they look over to the bed. He's not there. Look back at the table. He's standing amongst everybody. Dalton puts his hand on the table. Everybody flybacks from the table. Dalton is out here mollywopping everybody. There's spirits in the room. The same one that was pacing outside of Renee's room is in there, and his freaky ass, he grabs Renee and licks her cheek. It's just a lot going on. Elise puts her hand on Dalton, and she basically banishes whatever the fuck is controlling him. The lights cut on, Dalton falls flat. It's a hot ass mess. It's safe to say that whatever Elise just tried did not work. So Speck and Tucker are reviewing the footage, and they see Sasha, boots with the fur, physically holding Dalton and controlling his movements. Elise ended up calling Lorraine. Lorraine gets to the house, and Lorraine reveals that her and Elise are lovers. No, I'm kidding. Can you imagine though? She reveals that Dalton gets his astral projecting genetically through Josh. Lorraine goes on to explain that when Josh was a little boy, he would have nightmares of an old woman being in his room, and she didn't believe him until she seen the old woman in photos of Josh. And in the photos, the old woman was getting closer and closer to Josh, which is why she was shocked before when she seen that Josh had a photo with his family. And Josh doesn't remember any of this because apparently Elise suppressed his memory and his ability to astral project when he was a kid. Elise is saying that she's breaking all of this up now because they need Josh to go into the further to retrieve Dalton. And oh my god, thank goodness Josh agrees. I would have literally crashed out if he would have been like, none of this is real. So Elise like kind of hypnotizes Josh, I guess you could say, just to put him under so he's able to go into the further. And she tells Josh not to bring attention to himself because whatever else is in there, the other entities, if they find out that he's not one of them, that he's not a part of gang, they're gonna try to take his body. So Josh is in the further and he starts searching for Dalton. And the further is creepy as fuck. It looks scary as fuck. And I'm kind of looking at Dalton like, you came back here? Like, even if you thought this was a dream, you still went to explore this shit. There's all sorts of creepy characters in the further, and Josh is talking to literally all of them. And I'm like, did Elise not say for you not to bring attention to yourself? Like, play the part. Like, be creepy and shit, too. Don't look so fucking obvious. So Josh comes across a red door, and he remembers seeing the red door in one of Dalton's drawings, so he's like, okay, maybe this is where I need to go. But he can't get through the door because the freaky-ass ghost that was trying to lick Renee's face is there, and he's beating Josh's ass. So on the outside, it seems that Josh is, like, stirring in his sleep. Like, you can see that there's something clearly wrong. And so Elise tells Josh, like, you're stronger because you're the one that's alive. Like, lock in. He pushes the freaky-ass entity, and he's good to go. He's able to go through the red door. He finds Dalton. Dalton is chained up, bless his heart, which explains why he wasn't able to get back. It's not even that he was lost. He was literally being held hostage. Behind Josh, Sasha is upstairs in his weird ass workshop. He's sharpening his nails or his talons. And he's listening to the same Tiny Tim track. And I'm like, please, what? It seems like it would be such a chill song, and he's ruining it. Josh is able to get Dalton unchained, and then suddenly Sasha appears next to him and just backhands the fuck out of Josh. So they're able to escape Sasha for the moment. They're trying to get back to their bodies, but they're just like, they're surrounded by spirits. And the house, like the real house that's not in the further, the one that's in the nearer, I guess you could call it, the house is shaking, the lights go out, and Renee is calling out to Josh so he can find his way back. The fucking problem is that everybody else in the further can hear Renee, and so they're all like, oh, bet, let's all follow her voice. So the house calms down, and Specs goes to look around. He's looking in the kitchen. He sees that there's a drawer open. He goes to close the drawer, and then a hand pops out. Spec and Lorraine go and check on Dalton. Elise is like, oh fuck, the spirits are coming into our world. They're all up in Dalton's room trying to get to Dalton. They're coming out of his closet. Lorraine and Spec are trying to push them back as much as possible. They're trying to get to Josh, and then we cut to the further, and Josh and Dalton finally make it to the fucking house. Dalton goes and runs to get to his body. Josh sees the old woman that was taunting him from his childhood, and Josh determines that that was the perfect time for him to confront the old woman, and he's like yelling at her, and he's like, get away from me, what do you want, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And I'm like, dude, just go to your fucking body, okay? Time is of the essence. Dalton is trying to get to his body. Sasha ends up catching up to him, but he's able to make it to his body. Josh makes it to his body, and everybody's rejoicing. They're happy, they're vibing. The spirits disappear. It's a chill time. Spec and Tucker are outside packing up all their equipment. Lorraine, Renee, and Dalton, who is finally awake, are in the kitchen. Elise and Josh are in the living room. Josh is kind of looking at his childhood photos with the old woman and hands them to Elise. And for a moment, Elise looks shook. She looks disturbed. And when Josh asks her what's wrong, she's like, oh, nothing, like, I'll get rid of these photos. She goes to put the photos away, grabs a camera, quickly takes a picture of Josh, and then Josh freaks the fuck out and starts strangling her. So Renee hears commotion coming from the living room. She goes in there to find Elise is no more. But she's dead. She's dead. And Josh is nowhere to be found. So Renee is freaking the fuck out. She's running through the hallway. She's like trying to find Josh. So Renee runs back into the living room. She sees the camera, and she sees that is a picture of the old woman. Now we have context here. And the context is that Elise took that picture of Josh. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The old woman is inside Josh. Josh like puts his hand on Renee's shoulder, and he's like, hey. And we don't even get to see Josh's fucking face, and that's literally how the movie ends. I remember when this first came out, the ending really just pissed me off because it was so cryptic. Like, what the fuck happens? What happened after that? Having to wait 2 years to pick up, to figure out what the fuck is going on is crazy. I remember because of that, the movie left a bad taste in my mouth. But when I tell you, as soon as Insidious Chapter 2 came out, I was ready to see it premiere night because I'm like, what the fuck happened? And that brings us to the second installment, Insidious Chapter 2. So this one starts off with a flashback. It's 1986, and we see the very first time Lorraine met Elise. R.I.P. Elise. Oh, yeah. The casting for young Lorraine was, it was good, but the casting for young Elise ate the fuck down. Anyways, Elise got invited by a mutual friend, Carl, and they're basically there to help Josh with whatever it is that he's experiencing. Carl and Lorraine are giving Elise the rundown. They're showing photos of Josh and the old woman, and Carl is honestly gonna piss me off because he, right in front of Lorraine, whispers very loudly to Elise that he's like scared, and he was like, I'm really scared. I don't think it wants me here. I'm like, dude, lower your fucking voice. If you're trying to keep Lorraine calm, you're not doing a good job. She heard all of that. So Elise is recording her session with young Josh. She has her little metronome thing going on. She discovers the old woman and finds out that the old woman wants to be Josh. She explains that he's astral projecting and that she's able to suppress his ability and his memory. As she's explaining this to Lorraine, Josh randomly gets up and is like, oh, I'll show you, talking to no one in particular, eyes closed, points to the basement door. The door opens. So that's like weird as fuck. That's like a weird thing that happened, and we'll come back to that later. So present day, there's a pending investigation regarding Elise's demise, and Renee is being interviewed by a detective about what happened leading up to Elise's death. And we, the audience, finally get to find out what happened after she's seen the photo of the old woman. So cut back to the end of chapter 1. Renee has just discovered that Elise is dead. Josh comes back into the room and puts on a performance of a fucking lifetime. He's like, oh my God, Elise, no! We need to call an ambulance. Whole time Renee is looking at him like she's looking at him very suspicious, like she's looking at him sideways. But when the detective asks, do you think your husband did it? She's like, no, he didn't do it. The detective asked her about the photo of the old woman. This photo was taken right before Elise was killed. Who is that? Renee is trying to explain everything that went down. The detective isn't going to believe it. He was like, a human did this. There's prints on Elise's neck, and we're going to see if they match your husband's prints, making Josh the prime suspect. Renee goes back home, which is Lorraine's house temporarily, pending the investigation. Dalton and Forrester are staying in Josh's creepy-ass childhood bedroom, but they're making the best of it. They have those little tension walkie-talkies where you put like a little cup on one end, you tie a string, and you talk through it. In this case, it looks like they're using tin cans. Renee is sitting in the kitchen when she hears a piano playing in the other room. So Renee goes to investigate the piano playing, but the piano stops. So she goes upstairs and she's getting Callie's baby monitor set up. And she hears the piano again. So she goes downstairs, the piano is no longer playing, and suddenly she hears Callie crying upstairs. She goes into Callie's room and she's on the floor. Renee grabs Callie, she goes to Josh and she's like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. Callie was just on the floor. And Josh is over here talking about some, oh, has she done that before? Like, that's not fucking normal. And Josh is being very dismissive. He's like, we gotta leave the past where it is. We got our son back, and that's all that matters. And Renee basically lets it go. Cut to Specs and Tucker. They're home, which I can only assume the two of them lived with Elise. So they're in their home, and they see the door to Elise's reading room just open suddenly. So Specs and Tucker go in Elise's reading room to investigate, and they come across a videotape of Elise and Josh's session from when he was a kid. So we're back at Lorraine's crib, and the house is just dark and eerie as fuck. Like, even during the daytime it's dark and eerie as fuck, but at night, oh my God. Everybody is sleeping. Lorraine goes to check on Dalton, and Dalton is talking in his sleep. Mind you, his eyes are closed, and he says, Grandma, there's somebody standing behind you. And when I tell you, I would have stormed into Josh and Renee's room, and I was like, y'all need to get the fuck up out my house, because I'm not gonna be doing this. But Lorraine turns around and there's nobody there. Lorraine goes out into the hall and she hears music playing downstairs. Lorraine goes downstairs and Callie's loud ass, obnoxious ass walker starts going off. I mean, this toy just makes a lot of noise. It's just loud, it's doing too much. So Lorraine turns off the obnoxious ass baby walker thing. She goes into the hallway and sees a woman at the end of the hallway just walk into the next room. At first she thinks it's Renee. She goes to investigate, but there's nobody there. So Lorraine goes into the restroom and she pops something, okay? It could be a magnesium, it could be something stronger, but could you blame her? It's a lot going on in this house. And in the mirror, she sees a woman who was definitely not Renee standing outside of the bathroom. The house all of a sudden becomes real fucking windy and the door kind of closes a bit. Lorraine goes to open the door and Josh is standing there. And of course, Lorraine is like, oh my God, there was somebody here. And Josh immediately starts gaslighting her. He's like, nobody was there. There's nobody here. And Lorraine basically brushes it off and is like, okay, whatever. The next morning, Dalton is telling Renee about the dream that he had, but we know it's not a dream. We know that that shit happened. He's explaining how Lorraine came into his room. He's seen a woman standing behind her. I guess Dalton's point of view or his flashback, we see it was the same woman that was standing behind Lorraine when she was in the bathroom popping magnesiums. Dalton says that he was able to wake himself up, but then he heard talking in the hallway. He goes into the hallway and it's Josh. and Josh is talking to somebody and he's telling them that they need to leave. And so Renee is telling Dalton not to worry and that it was just a bad dream. And then Josh is standing in the doorway and it's like, oh my gosh, how much of that did he hear? So Lorraine goes to visit Speck and Tucker and she's telling them that it's not over. And she's explaining that there was somebody in the house the other night and that she needs their help. So Specs and Tucker have digitized Josh's video from when he was a kid. They're showing her the video and they're able to like adjust the brightness or something where they see adult Josh in the background. And so they definitely are needing some help. So they call Carl to see if he's able to contact Elise. Carl is able to communicate to spirits through dice. He has a bunch of dice. They have different letters on them. He asks a question. He shakes the dice. He throws them and the answer is spelled out on the dice. So he's throwing his dice a couple times. At first there's nothing, and then the lights start flickering. There's strange noises. It's very creepy. He asks, Elise, is that you? Shakes the dice and we see a response, yes. They ask Elise who killed her and she responds, she did. It's very fucking vague. I mean, there's more than a few dice there. Give us a name, Elise, please. They ask, okay, well, what does she want and where is she? Lorraine responds that she wants to kill and that she's hiding. She's hiding at Lady's Angels, or Our Lady of the Angels Hospital. And come to find out, Lorraine used to work there. So Renee is home alone with Callie and she gets a call from the detective and he explains that Josh's handprints don't match the handprints on Elise's neck. So he's cleared of any crimes. As she's on the phone with the detective, we see that there's a woman sitting in the living room, but Renee doesn't see, bless her heart. Renee is sitting on the staircase. Suddenly, Callie's loud-ass obnoxious walker toy thing is pushed out into the hallway from the living room. Renee goes to investigate the living room, and at first it seems that nobody is there, but as she walks by, like literally a woman just manifests and she's sitting on the couch. The woman stands and starts singing Row Your Boat. She walks into the next room, disappears in the hallway, and then finishes the fucking verse over Callie's baby monitor. And I'm like, holy shit, here we go again. So Renee runs upstairs to Callie. The door slams. We hear the woman talking to Callie, and then she yells at Callie. And I don't know if the woman mollywopped Callie, but there was a loud ass slapping noise followed by Callie screaming. And oh my gosh, would there have been problems? When I tell you, if I was Renee, I would have crossed over and beat that bitch's ass. Cause it's like, it's one thing, you're already yelling at my baby and you're gonna fucking, what? Poor Callie. Callie literally 100% of the time just be minding her own business. Poor baby cannot catch a fucking break. So suddenly Renee hears Callie crying downstairs. She runs downstairs. There's shit flying all over the place. She runs into the living room. She's looking around. She can't find Callie anywhere. Turns around and the same woman mollywops the fuck out of her. She said these hands are rated E for everybody. So Josh gets home. Renee is still knocked out. He picks her up, puts her on the couch, and then he's like sniffing her. Josh goes to the restroom and he's literally falling apart. Like his teeth are falling out and he seems to be ill. And there's a woman's voice talking to Josh, telling him to kill everybody. And if he doesn't kill everybody, his body is going to waste away. And he refers to this voice as Mother. And I'm like, Mother, you have data on this? Like, is him killing people gonna like change his health? Like, do you know this for certain, or are you just being a dick? So Scooby-Doo and the gang, or really Carl, Lorraine, Specs, and Tucker, go to the hospital, and as you can imagine, it's abandoned and creepy as fuck. They're walking through the hospital. Carl senses something in a particular room, and Lorraine confirms that that room used to be the ICU. So we get this flashback, and it appears to have been a day when Lorraine took Josh to work with her. And like, he's like at work with her. Like, he's like in patients' rooms and shit. I would have like, go, just wait in the hallway. Like, just wait in the hallway. And they're visiting one of Lorraine's patients that we'll come to know as Parker Crane. And Parker Crane attacks Josh. And Lorraine says that she's seen Parker a few days later. So Lorraine is in the elevator and she notices that Parker is also in the elevator. And Lorraine is confused and she's like, you need to be in bed. Like, you need to be resting right now. And Lorraine is also apologizing for Josh. Parker just does not acknowledge her. He doesn't look her way. He doesn't speak to her. So they both walk out the elevator. Parker goes left, Lorraine goes straight, and she goes straight to the nurse's station. She's talking to Nurse Hillary, and she's questioning Nurse Hillary. She's like, why is that patient walking around? Why is Parker Crane walking around? Like, he's supposed to be in bed resting. And Hillary said, what? He died yesterday. He jumped off the building. I said, oh, hell no. And I just know for a fact that was Hillary's last day. And I bet she tell all her kids and grandkids that story too. And so present day, they all start going through the hospital's files, and they find Parker Crane's file, and they're able to find his home address. They go to the address dress, they break into the house, and creepy as fuck, abandoned as fuck, you already know what's up. We have a little found footage moment. They got their little cameras, they're recording. So Specs and Tucker find Parker's room, and Specs makes an observation that his room seems a little girly, which these days, what does that even mean? There's like little rocking horses in there. They start rocking and they're moving on their own. A little kid runs by yelling at them, saying that it's their room. And behind them, there's a little girl sitting on the bed, and the little girl's like, hey, y'all need to leave, because if she sees you, she's gonna make me kill you. Swiftly and promptly, Specs and Tucker exit the room. Carl has his little dice. He's trying to contact Elise so they can get some direction on what they're supposed to be looking for and why they're there. And so he throws his dice down and he sees Morse, and he explains that that's Latin for death. And thank God that he knows Latin. I would have been like, more what? Lorraine sees a painting of a woman and a little girl and is literally almost killed by a chandelier. Like, you can see the screws unscrewing by themselves, but luckily Carl is able to push her out of the way in enough time. And he runs to his dice and he's like, is this Elise? And they respond, no. Which I'm like, damn, can spirits not lie? On their own, the dice move and it says Mother Mortis, Mother of Death. And Carl concludes that Mother Mortis is Parker Crane's mother. There's a bookcase and you can hear movement, you can hear like little thudding, you can hear noises coming from behind this bookcase. And so the four of them find a hidden room and it is disturbing and creepy as fuck. They go into the room and there's a bunch of bodies and they have like sheets covering them. They find this chest and it's full of articles about the Bride in Black. And apparently the Bride in Black was a serial killer who would dress in a black bridal gown and kill their victims. And so they're like, oh shit, these are the victims. And one of the surviving victims described the Bride in Black as an old woman wearing a black wedding gown and a black veil. They see the black wedding dress on a mannequin. Carl touches the dress and is able to get a vision of the woman in black. And he explains to the class that Parker Crane wore that dress before killing people and committed murders on his mother's command. Carl explains that Parker wanted Josh all those years ago because he wanted his childhood back. So nighttime has rolled around and Renee is barely waking up. And I just know that slap was laced with melatonin, maybe even Z-Quil. If you want a good night to rest, I know who you can call. It's Mother Mortis. She'll get you right. So Renee wakes up and she's freaking out. She's freaking out about Callie, and Josh is there trying to calm her down. She runs upstairs and Callie, I just know she's fucking exhausted. I know she's looking at Renee like, please get me out this fucking house because I can't do this anymore. Renee is telling Josh that she was attacked, and Josh of course is being very dismissive. He was like, you have to relax and you have to ignore them. And I'm like, ignore them? Callie and I were minding our fucking business and this bitch came to us molly-whopping me and my baby around. No. They hear the piano playing again downstairs, so they go downstairs to investigate, and Renee is like, see, I told you, like, there's something else going on here. They go in the room, it's completely empty, and Renee starts playing back the tune that was playing. Renee is like, see, like, this was the song that was playing. And he was like, what song? And she's looking at him like, what song? She was like, it's a song that I wrote. And not only did Renee write the song, it was a song that she wrote for Josh. Josh completely fucking deflects and is like, that's not the song we need to be worried about. There's somebody in this house. And he leaves and goes and finds a bat. So Dalton is laying in bed and he hears whispering coming from his little tension walkie-talkie. So Dalton, thinking it's Forrester on the other side of the walkie, is like, Forrester, go to bed. Whoever's on the other side of the walkie is like, this isn't Forrester. Which is fucking nightmare fuel. Ew. Dalton looks up and sees that the other end of the walkie leads into the closet. The slack on the walkie tightens up. So Dalton is talking back to the person and he's like, who are you? And the person on the other end is like, the ones that he killed. And there's a lot of us. There's like 12 of us in this closet right now. There's a bunch of us. Suddenly, there's hella people in the room. Dalton realizes he's astral projecting. He runs into his body and Renee is there. He's woken up and there's like literally a tear in his sheet. Josh is downstairs and he's in the piano room. It seems that he's talking to nobody. He's saying, you're not going to reach her. Like, you're trying to contact her and it's not going to work. You're going to stay in the darkness. You're going to stay in the shadows, bitch. And then he leaves the room. Cut to the further and it's the real fucking Josh. And he's been stuck in the further this whole time. And he was playing the song that Renee wrote for him. I would have been like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I hope this bitch knows hot cross buns because that's all I got. So the next morning, Renee is pulling up to the house with Callie, and she's just dropped the boys off with somebody named Jessica. I can only assume that she's like their babysitter. Josh is upstairs in the house and he's sick, like he's not feeling well. Or should I say Josh? And before Renee is even able to get Callie out of her car seat, Lorraine pulls up and is like, hey, we need to get the fuck out of here. She explains that it's not the house that's fucked up, it's Josh. Lorraine gets in the car with Renee. They pull over and Lorraine is basically telling her what's going on in the game plan. Something came back in place of Josh, and that Carl is at the house right now, and the plan is for him to sedate Josh, knock him out, so then they can hopefully find the real Josh and get him back in his body. So Specs, Tucker, and Carl are in a van outside of the house, and they give Carl a little tranquilizer, a little sedation needle. They put a mic on him, and the safe word, or the little code word that they give him if he's in trouble, is literally quesadilla. Specs and Tucker were definitely the comedic relief, because what the fuck is quesadilla? How the fuck do you bring that up in a conversation? But nonetheless, Carl knocks on the door, Josh answers, and Carl just kind of introduces himself a little bit. He's like, yes, I'm a friend of Lorraine's, and Elise was also my friend, and I'm basically here to get closure. And he's able to get inside the house. Josh looks fucking ill. Like, Josh looks like he has been through it. He does not look good at all. Josh and Carl are in the living room and they're talking about Elise, and Carl notices a tooth on the ground. I'd be fucking pissed if a spirit came back in my place and fucked up my teeth and hairline and my overall health. I'm like, bro, get the fuck out of here. Carl asked Josh if when he was in the further, when he went to go rescue Dalton, if he's seen the old woman that was taunting him as a kid. We know that he definitely did. And Josh is like, no, I didn't see her there. And Josh becomes very suspicious. Like, the vibe is very much off. And Josh offers to get Carl some water. So while Josh is in the kitchen for all of a fucking second, like, he got the water pretty fucking quick, Carl is trying to get the sedation thing together. And Josh is like back in a hurry and sees Carl is fumbling with something in his hands. Josh is like, hey, like, what are you doing? And Carl is like, oh, nothing. Josh is like, oh, I figured you would be playing with your dice. I said, oh shit. Carl notices that Josh has his hand behind his back. And so he asks him, he's like, what do you got there? What's behind your back? Josh is like, well, ask your dice. And he says, mother says that you're really good with them at the house the other day. And I'm like, oh my God, no, because you already know which mother he's talking about. He's not talking about Lorraine. And at first he's like, what does Josh have behind his back? But then he's like, nah, fuck that. We're going to air this shit out right the fuck now. He rolls the dice and he's like, what does Parker Crane have behind his back? And then throws the dice down. And then Josh's face, it is like, he like is very clearly pissed. The dice say that he has a knife behind his back. Surprise to fucking prize, he has a knife behind his back. And without having to even use a code word, Tucker and Specs is like, oh shit, we need to get in there. They get into the house. And at this point, Josh is strangling Carl. And Carl, bless his heart, is like, quesadilla, quesadilla. They get in the house. They tase Josh, which only stops him for a minute. Carl is down for the fucking count. He's out of there. Josh ends up sedating Tucker and knocking out Specs. Carl wakes up in the further. Josh is there. Josh is like apologizing because he's like, you're here because of me. Ultimately, they go and try to find Elise. Cut to Lorraine and Renee. Renee is dropping Callie off with somebody. We don't know who. And Lorraine has received a text from Tucker saying that they're all set. They're good to come to the house. Mind you, Tucker is unconscious. Josh sent that text. We're back in the further and we have this interstellar moment. Josh and Carl are walking around trying to find Elise, but instead they come across the old house from Insidious chapter 1. So remember that scene in the first movie when Josh and Renee were in bed and they heard the banging downstairs? It was actually Josh in the further, and he's banging on the door trying to get their attention because he's seen an entity walking around the house, and the entity that Josh seen walking around the house was the same one that was in Callie's room. It's also the freaky one that was trying to lick on Renee. Josh is in Callie's room with the freaky deaky ass entity, and he's getting his ass beat, but then is saved by Elise. If I was Josh, I'd be like, lady, where have you been? I've been here for days. Haven't seen you once in this bitch. Elise was saying that she heard him calling and basically came back to help. And she's shocked and upset to see that Carl is there. Elise is telling Josh that he needs to get memories of the entity of the old woman and push that bitch out. Unfortunately, Josh doesn't remember. And Elise is like, oh shit, maybe we have the wrong Josh. Maybe we need to go to a different Josh to get an answer. So they go deeper into the further and they find younger Josh. And they meet young Josh like the same day that he met Elise. Josh is asking younger Josh where the old woman lives, and he stands up and he says, I'll show you, and points to the basement door. And that explains why he did that in the recording. And I'm like, whoa, like I said, it's like an interstellar type of thing where things were already in motion. The basement door opening by itself was actually Carl, Elise, and Josh, older Josh, walking through. So the three of them go into the basement and they find a red door. So at this point, Lorraine and Renee are home and they're walking in and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're surprised to see that Josh is awake and Josh is like just deteriorating. Josh is basically trying to kill them. He's chasing them through the house. He ends up locking Lorraine in a closet. He's chasing after Renee. I guess you could say luckily, the babysitter, Jessica, whoever the fuck she is, I need to know more about her because she drops Dalton and Forrester off at the house. And luckily, you know, they're able to save Renee. Dalton hits Josh with a bat, but pause there because why is this Jessica person dropping off kids and shit without seeing an adult, without seeing and speaking to an adult? I don't know if she got bad vibes and was like, I'm not going in that fucking house and they're not paying me to watch you overnight so y'all can let yourselves in. So Renee takes the boys and lock themselves in the basement. Fake Josh, or Parker Crane in Josh's body, is trying to get into the basement. He's just fighting tooth and nail to get in this basement. Like, he may look sick, but he got something in him that's breaking down walls, quite literally. So in the basement, Dalton volunteers to go into the further to get Josh back. At first, Renee is like, no, but then ultimately she lets him do his thing. So in the further, Elise, Josh, and Carl have ventured through the red door and they end up in Parker's house. It's different from any other parts of the further. Like, it's very much bright. And it's like they're witnessing a moment between Parker and Mother Mortis. And it's really sad. And it seems that Parker and his mother cannot see Elise, Josh, and Carl. So Parker drew a picture for his mom, and it's a very adorable picture. There's some flowers. You can tell it was made with love. And she's upset that he signed the name Parker on the drawing instead of the name that she later gave him, Marilyn. It seems that she wants a daughter, so she's been dressing Parker up in dresses and has him wearing a wig with pigtails. And she literally slaps Parker. And this scene fucked me up. Maybe not when I seen it the first time, but recently rewatching it, it really made me sad. It's very clear that Mother Mortis is abusive towards Parker and just fucked up, okay? She just fucked up. And the fact that he still drew her a picture, the fact that he still made a drawing for her, it reminded me of the Gabriel Fernandez case. And we won't get too much into that, but I remember watching the documentary on Netflix. His home situation was really bad due to the abuse of his mother and his stepfather, and I mean really bad. And yet he still made her a Mother's Day card. And it just fucks me up because I'm like, damn, kids really don't understand whenever somebody that's supposed to take care of them is like being abusive towards them. And seeing that in the movie made me think of that, and it just made me really sad. Mother Mortis is lecturing Parker. In mid-sentence, she stops and looks right at Elise and Carl. And I guess all of a sudden she can see them now. She starts screaming at them and she basically like somehow pushes them out of the room. Everything goes dark. They're locked outside. Josh is inside the room and he's now surrounded by people like covered in sheets. And so Mother Mortis is like challenging Josh. And she's like, you gotta find me. I was like, bitch, this is too much. Elise sees a young Parker out in the hallway and she's telling him like, hey, we need to get in that room. Like, you can be freed from this, but, you know, help me get inside that room. Just as Mother Mortis is strangling Josh, Elise is able to get inside and I mean, just fucks Mother Mortis up. She gets one of those horse rocking chairs. She hits her from behind and then she just starts going the fuck in. And I said, you better, Elise. Elise's ass beating is so strong that it affects Josh out in the real world. Josh, who is currently possessed by Parker Crane. So defeating Mother Mortis in the further has knocked Josh in the real world unconscious, meaning his body is for the taking. It was perfect timing because the way that Dalton was about to get got in the further, Elise tells Josh and Carl that they need to leave. And I said, wait a minute, they need to leave. Apparently, Carl is still alive. He has a faint heartbeat, but he's still alive and he can go back. My mom and my sister and I were preparing to watch Insidious, The Red Door. And so we're watching the previous Insidious movies. We didn't get to this part because our showtime for Red Door was about to start. So we never finished it. So we didn't know that Carl survived. So when we seen that motherfucker in the red door, the confusion was real. But anyway, Josh and Carl are trying to make it back to their bodies, but they get lost. They're surrounded by spirits, but luckily Dalton finds them and is able to bring them back. So they're back in their bodies. The boys cling to Josh, and Renee is staring at Josh like, is it you this time? Because last time you said it was you, but it wasn't really you. It was that old woman who was really Parker Crane, and it's too much. Is it you? And then Josh is like, yes, I played your song to try to reach out to you. And then she's like, okay, like, I'm pretty sure this is him. And then she hugs him. They embrace happily ever after. Carl suppresses Josh and Dalton's memory. They have no recollection of anything that's happened. They know that Dalton was in a coma and that Dalton got out of a coma. So anything in between that, anything dealing with the further, anything with astral projection, they don't even fucking know about. So the movie ends with Specs and Tucker visiting a family in regard to their daughter Allison, and the family opens the door. Y'all, it's Jenna Ortega. When I tell you there are times where it feels like movies came out just yesterday, but then they actually didn't, this was that wake up call for me. I said, now wait a damn minute. But the little girl, who's also Jenna Ortega, sees that Elise is with them. They can't see Elise, the adults can't see Elise, but Elise is there. Specs and Tucker is talking to the family. So apparently their daughter Allison was in an accident, and when she was resuscitated at the hospital, she brought something back, and that something is what killed her. So then Elise goes inside the house. She sees Allison and she's like, hey, like, you know, we're here to help you. There's something behind Allison that freaks Elise out, and she's like, Elise looks shook, and I'm like, Elise, why don't you just retire? Like, you've served, you've done everything that you could, you've helped everybody that you could. Just rest, mama. Just take a fucking seat. I feel like the movies Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2 go together very well. I like them as a complete whole. I don't like Insidious by itself because, like I said, the ending. But once you have the second part of it, you're like, oh, we're vibing, we're jucking and jiving. I will say the time travel aspect literally fucks me up every time. If I think about it too hard, it'll literally make my brain hurt. Anytime there's a time travel movie and there's a predestined outcome, I have to shut my brain off and not think about it too much because I like the concept. It's very fun. Like, oh my God, the whole time this was this and that was that. But then it's like I start thinking about it too hard and I'm like, so it was gonna happen regardless. All this shit was gonna happen regardless. It was predestined from when Josh was a little boy. There was nothing that they could have done to prevent that. And one of my favorite movies that I've seen this recently is Presence with Lucy Liu. Man, I like a good twist. I won't spoil it for you, but it was a good twist. So now to the final chapter, Insidious the Red Door. So it's 9 years later, we see the Lambert family has gathered for Lorraine's funeral. Ew. Not ill, but it's like, damn, that's sad. But I don't know who chose the picture for her service, but they ate down. I know her face card didn't decline at the pearly gates. So they're leaving Lorraine's services, and we see Callie is all grown up. I'm like, please let nothing happen to this baby in this movie. She done been through enough. But Callie is really sad, and she's talking about how she misses her grandma. And so Josh is trying to comfort Callie, and it's like, oh, she misses you too. And then dark ass, angsty ass Dalton is like, dead people don't miss anything. I said, damn. And we find out very quickly that the relationship between Dalton and Josh is strained as fuck. We also find out that Josh and Renee have divorced, which honestly comes to no surprise to me. I feel like in the last movie, she was staring at him a little too hard when he came back from the further the second time. Renee and Josh seem cordial enough though. Dalton is going off to college soon, and Renee is telling Josh that he should drop him off on campus, you know, to aid in their strained relationship. And Josh is like, no, he doesn't want me to. And she's like, you know, you're the parent, like you can determine that, just go. And Josh is like, well, no, I can't. And Renee's like, why? Dude does not have an answer. I'm like, bro, are you even fucking trying to have a relationship with your kids at this point? And so while they're having this conversation, Renee sees Carl leaving the funeral, and she's like, oh, fuck. Like, we need to wrap this conversation up because Josh and Dalton, they're not supposed to know that Carl even fucking exists. Renee is like, okay, whatever, I gotta go. So she leaves. Josh walks in his car and ends up running into Carl anyways. And he kind of like stops him and he's like, hey, do I know you? Like, he very clearly recognizes him, but he can't seem to remember from where. And so Josh is like, who are you? Do I know you? And Carl basically is like very cryptic and is just saying that he knew Lorraine and that they lost touch over the years. They part ways. Carl skedaddles the fuck out of there and Josh goes back to his car. So Josh texts Dalton offering to take him to campus. Josh starts watching baby videos of Dalton. We see a silhouette walking towards the car. And it's like, well, the thing that fucks me up is that the silhouette was there the whole time, just standing there. It was there the whole time. You see the same colors, but you don't perceive it as a silhouette until it starts slowly walking up to the car. Dalton reluctantly agrees to let Josh take him to campus, and then the silhouette vanishes behind Josh. I said, fuck no, here we go. Starting real bright and early with this shit. Josh and Dalton are on their little road trip, and it's awkward as fuck. Would not want to be in that car with them. They arrive on campus. Josh is helping Dalton move into his dorm. He's helping him unpack his stuff. It seems that Renee packed Dalton like a little mini generator, like a little power source. So if the power cuts out, he's able to plug in whatever the fuck he needs to plug in. So Josh continues helping him unpack and comes across a drawing that Dalton made of Lorraine. And Dalton is obviously an art major. He has drawings and paintings of the whole family except for Josh. So Josh notices this and apologizes to Dalton for not being a present father. And he briefly mentions how he never knew his father. And he explains that over the years, his brain has just gotten really foggy and he hasn't been making time to spend time with him and his siblings. And just as Dalton is suggesting that Josh get help and get that figured out, Dalton's roommate comes in. So we meet Chris Winslow, who is a girly pop. They quickly come to the conclusion that there was a mix-up in the roommate situation because of her name. So Chris seems like a vibe. She seems very chill. She's able to get a chuckle and a smile from Dalton, who has been Dark Dalton so far in the movie. So this is refreshing. Like I said, they established that there might have been a mix-up in the roommate situation. So she leaves to go to admissions to get that figured out. Josh is encouraging Dalton to go to a frat party, and Dalton is sincerely insulted by this. Josh is telling him, like, just go, have fun, do it for me. Like, I brought you here. And Dalton is like, you didn't even want to bring me, and reveals that he heard the conversation between Josh and Renee. They get into a heated argument. Josh calls Dalton an ungrateful little shit. Dalton says something on the lines of, I can see why mom divorced you. Tensions are high. Josh leaves Dalton's dorm. He's trying to hurry up and get to his car. He sees his car, he's trotting over, and he's starting to cry, and then he cries. I was like, that made me so sad. I was like, please go back in there and fix it before you leave. But he doesn't. So Dalton is in his dorm, he's getting ready for bed. Chris explains that they're stuck for the night, but that she'll be moving rooms the following day. And Chris is either an introvert's wet dream or worst nightmare. Dalton is all shy, and Chris is like, here, play my melodica. Chris is trying to get to know Dalton, and they're basically like exchanging stories and like little fun facts about each other. It comes up that Dalton was in a coma. So Dalton's recollection is that he had viral meningitis and cannot remember anything from that year at all. So they're done sharing fun facts for the night, getting ready for bed, and Dalton is afraid of the dark, so he has a little nightlight, which it makes sense now that Renee packed him a little power generator in case the power went out there. So Dalton is in one of his art classes. He has Professor Armageddon. Dalton was very adamant on having Armageddon as his professor. So Armageddon tells the class to pull out their best art piece, something that would impress her. And so everybody does. Dalton pulls out his drawing of Lorraine. Armageddon stops in front of this student. His name is Alec, and it sounds like a compliment at first. She's like, your technique is obvious. It's very realistic. It looks like a photograph. And so Alec is like, oh, thank you. And she said, that's not a compliment, and then tells him to tear it up. The scared looks around the classroom, everyone looking like, oh shit, is she gonna have us all tear up our shit? Alec refuses, and she kicks him out of the class, and she's like, you've quit, you've given up, go on ahead and leave. And then he leaves. In my mind, I'm like, oh fuck, Dalton has a picture of his grandmother who just passed. I was like, I don't know if he's gonna want to rip that up. Armageddon is like lecturing the class, and she's like, anybody can learn technique. She's like, I want something that comes from inside. And as she's talking, Dalton rips up the picture of Lorraine. Armageddon seems to be impressed by this. Dalton seems happy, like he doesn't seem like distraught or upset that he's ripped the picture. And I get what Armageddon was trying to do. Like symbolically, I understand. He's talking about letting go of the past, shedding your skin and growing, but that is absolutely something that should go on Rate My Professor. My review would be like, literally, don't bring your favorite piece of work, bring a fucking stick figure. Bring a stick figure drawing. Bring anything else. I paint and I draw myself. I remember when I was in between jobs, I would sell my paintings. I'm still trying to track people down to buy that shit back. I would have probably walked out too. I don't know. Armageddon has them doing a drawing exercise, and the words that she's using is giving shit's about to pop off. Like, she's saying stuff. She's like, I want you to sink further and further into yourself. And I'm like, stop repeating the word further. You're literally gonna trigger Dalton. He's gonna fucking activate, bitch. Slow down. Dalton closes his eyes. Armageddon is like, okay, I'm gonna count down from 10. I was like, you mean fucking hypnotize him and send him into the further? Please stop. She's like, I want your ugliest, most inner thoughts. And I'm like, we don't want that from Dalton specifically. Like literally anybody else. He doesn't need to be going further anywhere. He doesn't need to be looking at any thoughts that are unpleasant and you certainly don't need to be counting down around him. But she does. When she gets to 1, Dalton starts drawing, and he's drawing a door, which seems harmless enough. Just kidding. A fucking demon hand pops up out of fucking nowhere and like gashes him. He starts bleeding all on the canvas. And when the demon grabs his hand, Josh is somewhere taking a midday nap. He's now activated. He wakes up. Shit is not good. Shit is not sweet. So like I said, Dalton is bleeding on the canvas, and Armageddon casually comes up and leaves him like a little band-aid on his stand. And I really feel like she was too casual about that. I'm like, they're over here working with charcoal, not fucking blades. Why is he bleeding? Josh is taking Dalton's advice, and he decides to get an MRI to see what's going on with his brain, which is my biggest fear. I got a CT scan done before. You know, you're not fully emerged like you are an MRI, and that still almost had me fucked up. Doctor gets Josh settled in. He's inside the MRI machine, and he's chilling. He's vibing. MRI machine is making all sorts of noises and shit. It sounds like it's working properly. Maybe. I don't fucking know. And then suddenly, the whole room, the MRI machine, everything goes dark, like the power cuts out, and over the intercom the doctor says someone is with you. I would have been like, the way I would have shimmied my way down out of that goddamn MRI machine, because why the fuck would you say something like that to me? Josh hears like a creaking noise, and he starts freaking the fuck out. And I mean rightfully so, because what the fuck? He's yelling. He's like, get me out of here, get me out of here. And then over the intercom again, the doctor is like, the door is open. There's like somebody behind Josh in the MRI machine somehow. We see like a hand creeping up by the side of his face. Josh doesn't see though, but Josh senses something, so he looks behind him. Suddenly there's nobody there. He looks down by his feet. Oh my God. Suddenly the MRI machine is miles long, and there's somebody crawling up to him. When I tell you I would have been kicking my feet, really the person crawling up is at the disadvantage, because all he has to do is like one good time to the forehead. The lights cut on. The person that was in there with him is gone. And he's like, you know, not pulled out of the machine. The bed slides out. He slides out very calmly as normal. The doctor comes in, and Josh is freaking the fuck out. And he was like, who was in here? Somebody was in here with me. The power went out. And the doctor was like, you were asleep for a whole 15 minutes. For us, it felt like a couple moments, you know, it wasn't no fucking 15 minutes, but apparently he was sleeping. And you know what happens when the Lambert men fall asleep. So the doctor is going over the scan results with Josh, and he's basically saying that everything looks normal. Josh is like kind of upset by this, and I can understand that when you just want like an answer to your problem so you can fix it. The doctor is asking Josh if he has any mental illness that runs in his family, and Josh says that he's unsure, and the doctor is basically encouraging him to do research on that, but in the meantime for him to play like little matching games to get his brain working. Dalton is in his dorm, and he's like smearing the charcoal and the blood around on his little painting to where the door becomes red. So the lights go out in the dorm. Dalton gets his little mini generator. He plugs the lamp in, and the lamp light is red. There's a bloody handprint on the lamp that's causing it to look red in the room. There's a bloody handprint on Chris's bed, and he's over here trying to match the handprint to his hand. Like, did I do that? And it's like, clearly you didn't. Did you touch her bed at any point? At what point do you just leave? Because clearly something ain't right here. And then a sheet like it attacks him. Chris walks into the dorm to get her stuff. The sheet has gone flaccid, and she just flicks the light switch and the light comes on. But Dalton brushes past it, and Chris is encouraging Dalton to go to the frat party that Josh was telling him about. And it seems that she wants to go, like, ironically. And they get to the frat party, and it's just, for me, it's not a vibe. I don't know if it's because I'm an old biddy or if it just actually wasn't a vibe. It just looked like too much. And it didn't help either that they had like their little frat pudding, and they were serving chocolate pudding out of a diaper, which like looks fucking gross. I think that's what set the mood for me. And so then we're introduced to Nick, aka Nick the Dick. I don't know if he's like the leader of the fraternity or what. He basically stops the party to give a speech. He seems like a douche. He tells everybody to pace themselves so they don't have another incident. Immediately you hear voices in the room saying RIP, RIP. So I'm guessing there was an incident that ended badly. Real shit, I feel like the depiction of fraternities and sororities in movies ruined sororities for me in real life. I remember when I was going to college and I had friends that were pledging D9. After they crossed through and shit, they were like volunteering and shit. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I thought y'all just like partied all the time. Had I known that y'all were out here doing community work and shit, hell, might have joined. Chris and Dalton decide that the party is boring, and they go upstairs to explore. They end up in Nick's room. Chris leaves Dalton to go explore elsewhere. Dalton is in the room by himself. He hears like excessive vomiting from the bathroom, and it sounds like whoever is in there is going through it. It does not sound good at all. Like, it sounds like a lot of a lot of contents. Dalton goes to check on the person vomiting in the restroom, and when the person looks up, it's giving very much mostly ghostly. It's giving ghouls and goblins. It's giving we shouldn't be here right now. And the vomiter is yelling at Dalton, and he's telling him to close the door. So it's like, the bathroom door? Maybe he wants some privacy. Maybe the bathroom door? It's not the bathroom door. Dalton gets out of the bathroom. He shuts the door. He hears Nick the Dick coming into his room. So he's like, oh fuck, and hides underneath the bed. Nick goes into the restroom, and suddenly nobody is there. Vomiter is not in there. So Nick leaves out of the room. Dalton is still underneath the bed, and he's laying flat on his tummy. You know, he's having himself some tummy time, looks behind him and sees that somebody is crouching down as if to look underneath the bed. So he wants no parts of that. So he starts crawling from underneath the bed, and from on top of the bed is the vomiter, and he just releases all on Dalton. So Chris walks in, vomiter disappears along with his vomit, like Dalton is completely normal. And Dalton can't even process what just happened because Nick is coming back into his room. And to distract the fact that they were in there snooping, Chris kisses Dalton. And so when Nick comes in, and it's like, what the fuck are y'all doing in my room? Chris is like, oh, sorry, we just wanted somewhere to be in private. And she was like, you know, we were gonna hook up or whatever. And then Nick, for no reason at all, just starts flaming up Chris and Chris alone. He's like, I'd rather watch my parents have sex, which is a crazy ass thing to say. And then he tells Chris, like, oh, if you stick around, maybe we'll all get drunk enough to find you attractive. What? He tells her that she looks like a clown. Mind you, Nick is literally wearing a diaper right now. To make it worse, I'm like, Chris is actually pretty. Like, what are we doing right now? I get that, you know, he's found some people in his room and he's upset about that, and maybe he wants to say some hurtful ass shit, but I'm like, why only Chris? Dalton is there too. I would have been like, get the fuck out of my room with your fucking clear ass skin and your cute ass fucking outfit. And who the fuck is that herbal essence bitch behind you? Healthy ass hair, fucking bitch. And you know, I acknowledge I'm not good at roasting people, but you get what I'm trying to say. Chris kicks Nick in the balls and they scurry out. Chris is noticing that Dalton is really quiet. So Chris is like, oh fuck, like I kissed you. I'm really sorry about that. Dalton is very clearly freaked out because he just has himself some paranormal activity up in Nick's room. Plays it off and he's just like, oh no, like I'm just upset about what he said to you. They go on about their night. So Dalton is in his room. He's adding more to his door painting. He's drawing like a figure of a person. It's unclear of who it is. So Dalton falls asleep, and you know, naturally with sleeping, he projects astrally. His dorm room door opens. He goes upstairs to Chris's dorm. He blows on her melodica. Chris wakes up, looks in Dalton's direction. This freaks Dalton out. So he runs back to his dorm and he barely makes it because there's something like following him. So Dalton gets a knock on his door and it's Chris. And for context, she knew that it was Dalton because he was playing the same tune that he played for her before earlier in the movie, which happened to be the song that Renee wrote for Josh. Chris is in Dalton's dorm and she's like, what the fuck? And so Josh is basically explaining everything that he's been going through. He says that he's been seeing things. He said that he's seen the boy, vomiter as we call him very fondly, in Nick's room that night. He explains the drawing of the door, how he fell asleep and then went to her room. Chris is a good friend because she offers to sleep in the dorm with him, which would not have been me. I'm like, thank you so much for sharing and thank you for warning me to stay away from you, because that's the message that I got from this conversation. So the next morning, Josh is experiencing some paranormal shit. He walks by what I assume to be Lorraine's bedroom in his house. When he walks by the first time, it's closed. He walks by again and it's open. He's doing his little matchy game thing like the doctor suggested. He has family photos set up in the window. As he's looking at the photos, we see somebody across the street. As he's lifting up each photo, the man is getting closer and closer. At some point, Josh resets the puzzle and the man literally crashes through the window. The man is like slowly chasing him, I guess you could say, up the stairs, ultimately leads him to Lorraine's room. At first, we think that Josh has escaped the man, and then the man appears in the room. Josh falls into the closet, and I guess he like passes out briefly because he's in the further, and he sees a box with the name Ben Burton on it. And so he wakes up in the real world and he investigates the contents of the box. He sees photos of his mom with the man who is chasing him, and so he goes to the library to do more research. He's going through Ben Burton's medical files and sees that he was riddled with a bunch of mental illnesses. In the file, there's mention of astral projection, and Josh finds out that Ben was his father. So Dalton is in class and he's having flashbacks of his childhood, and it's like very vague stuff. It's like not enough for him to put pieces together. It's just like little bits and pieces here and there. Dalton calls Forrester Forrester and asks him if he remembers anything from their childhood regarding a red door, but he's like of no use. He doesn't remember anything like that. So Chris visits Dalton's dorm, and she's basically been doing research on everything that he's been experiencing. She pulls up her findings, and she's showing him a YouTube video, and it just so happens to be Specs and Tucker, and they're explaining astral projection, and they end up talking about Elise in the video, and Dalton is triggered when he sees Elise and stops the video right there, clicks on another video of Elise, and she's further explaining it. So now he's now up to date. We've been up to date, okay? We're like 2.5 movies in. We're astral projection professionals. And it's just so fucked up because he's literally seen these people before on multiple occasions. Like, not even just like a one-time thing, but he's seen them like a couple of times before. So with this newfound information, Dalton tells Chris that he wants to go back to the frat house so he can speak to Vomiter to figure out what's going on and see if he's able to get some more information. So they go back to the frat house, they sneak in, and they find a dark, quiet room. Dalton goes to sleep, he astral projects. So Dalton is trying to find Vomiter, but he can't. The power in the frat house cuts out. Dalton is trying to get back to Chris, and so Vomiter like literally snatches him up. He forces his hand out of the wall and grabs Dalton. It's more of the same shit. The dude is like, close the door, and it's like, okay, you've been saying that. Can you say anything else that's useful? Is that something that we could incorporate in our conversation? Meanwhile, Chris is in the room with Dalton's body and gets attacked by none other than Sasha. So Dalton makes it back to his body. Nick the Dick is doing compressions on Chris. She wakes up. She ends up going to like the little campus hospital. She gets checked out. Everything's fine, but she wants nothing to do with Dalton at this point. And I don't blame her. She's like, I don't want to mess with this stuff. You shouldn't be messing with this stuff because, bitch, what if you didn't wake up? We would have both been screwed. And I was like, girl, I know that's right. I was like, Dalton's cute, but he ain't that fucking cute. So Dalton calls Forrester again and asks him if he remembers anything about a guy with a hammer. Forrester is like, no, I don't remember that, but I remember like hiding in a basement. And Forrester says anytime that he's brought it up to Renee just kind of dismisses it and said that it was a bad dream. So hearing this trigger something in Dalton, he hangs up the phone, he goes back to his dorm, and he starts working on his painting again. He finishes the painting, and it's of Josh. And we know this painting is taken out of context, but for Dalton, he's like, I knew there was something wrong with this man. I don't fuck with him. I don't like him, and I want answers about this. So Dalton takes a picture of the painting and sends it to Forrester. Meanwhile, Josh visits Renee, and he's confiding in her about his father, and he's saying that his father abandoned him, and now he's abandoned his kids. And Renee is trying to reassure him, and Josh explains that his father jumped from a mental hospital in 1978, and he's like, I never met him, but he's literally haunting me. He attacked me today. He's reading a note that his father left for Lorraine, and it said, this ends with me. Josh is like, do I have his mental illnesses? Did I pass something on to our kids? Like, he's haunting me. Is he gonna haunt my kids? And Renee is like, no, stop. Like, it explains everything to Josh, starting with the old woman that haunted him as a child, all the way up until Dalton and him had their memories suppressed. Renee is trying to reassure him about his father Ben, and she's basically like, you know, he could astral project too, but at the time, Lorraine didn't know how to help him. And Josh is mad at Renee for having his memory suppressed, but mind you, he agreed to that shit. Like, he sat down consensually and agreed to have his memory suppressed. And so Josh is like, you held this secret for 10 years, and then Renee just snaps, and I don't blame her. And she explains to Josh, like, you tried to kill us. And she was like, granted, it wasn't you, but the kids don't understand that. They still have nightmares. They still remember you trying to hurt them. She's like, I'm the one who had to explain to them that they don't need to be scared of you and that they were just having bad dreams, basically gaslighting her kids for 10 years because of everything that went down. So then Foster comes in and he's confronting Josh with Dalton's painting, and he's like, is this you? Like, explain this. Forrester is telling them that Dalton has been having nightmares and visions, and so they're like, oh shit, we need to help him. Back on campus, Sasha cuts the power out. Dalton is staring at his painting, and suddenly the hammer becomes three-dimensional, and Dalton grabs the hammer, and suddenly he's in the basement from all those years ago, and he's kind of witnessing everything go down with Josh trying to attack them. And Dalton sees Josh when he was possessed by Parker Crane. He's about to hit young Dalton with the hammer, and I wish he would have just stopped to let it play out, because he would have seen everything else. He would have seen them rejoice and everything. Dalton doesn't let it get that far. He tackles Josh. The tackle somehow pushes both of them into the further, and then suddenly Josh isn't Josh. He's the old woman. The old woman disappears, and so Dalton is like in, I guess, the further version of Armageddon's classroom, off yonder, Sasha is nearby and he's playing Tiny Tim's greatest hits. And Dalton is kind of looking around and there's like mannequins set up and they're like memories from his childhood. And so Sasha appears right in front of Dalton and then Dalton wakes up in his dorm. Just as that's happened, there's a knock at the door and it's Chris, and she's brought some LED lights to plug into his little generator. So Chris is telling Dalton, like, here, I brought you some lights. Like, I know I was a little upset earlier, but she's basically trying to be there for him and be supportive for him. So Chris is struggling to get the lights to work properly. So the lights are flickering on and off. Each time Dalton is being submerged in darkness. So the first time the lights cut on, Dalton is staring very intently at Chris. First, I was like, oh girl, he seems very attentive towards you. You should get in there. The lights cut off and they cut on again. Dalton looks fucked up. And if it wasn't clear before, let it be clear now that that is not Dalton. It's Sasha. So at some point, Dalton silently gets up and like walks away. And so Chris turns around, sees that he's gone. And mind you, they're in a small room. They're in a pretty small room. And she's walking around searching for him. Like, it's the type of room where you should be able to look up at any point and see what the fuck is going on. You know what I mean? And I'm like, the fact that you're in the same room with him, searching for him the way that you are, I feel like you should leave. And then there's Dalton standing in a corner facing the wall like he's in fucking timeout. He's making all sorts of weird noises, like he's growling and shit. And she's like, Dalton, she's like, are you okay? I'm like, girl, if you don't fucking leave, 1 week got a PWI and she thinks she invincible. Get the fuck out. Dalton turns around and like telepathically throws her against the wall. And the real Dalton is chained up yet again in the further, listening to Tiny Tim's greatest hits. So Josh is in the further searching for Dalton. He makes it to Dalton's room and sees that Dalton is possessed. Josh finds the real Dalton, unchains him, and Dalton is like freaked the fuck out. And he's like, I seen you. You tried to kill me. Josh is trying to explain like, no, it possesses you. You're literally like in the real world possessed right now. Like, we need to move. And thank goodness Dalton trusts Josh and goes with him. So Sasha is now aware that Dalton has been set free, and so he leaves Dalton's body and goes back into the further. This leaves Chris alone with Dalton's empty vessel. And you know, when the vessels are empty, the entities come a running. And so Chris is holding on to Dalton. Their spirits all about trying to get inside of his body. Meanwhile, in the further, Josh and Dalton are being chased by Sasha. They're able to make it through a door, and it just so happens to be the red door. And Josh is holding his body up against the door. Sasha is really banging, trying to get through. Josh ultimately sacrifices himself and tells Dalton to go back to his body. Someone has to stay and keep the door closed. So Dalton makes it back to his body. All the entities disappear. So in the further, Josh is struggling. Sasha is breaking through the door. And at this point, Josh is fully prepared to sacrifice himself. And then suddenly, he sees black paint dripping from the door. On the outside, Dalton is sealing the door closed with black paint. And I'm like, damn, you don't have a bigger paintbrush? You didn't want to just like throw the paint on there, use your hands, something to make it go by faster. But he ends up painting it. He seals the door successfully. He closes the door. And Chris is like, okay, now that that's done, we need to burn the painting. We need to get rid of the painting. Dalton is like, no. He was like, we can never forget. Forgetting doesn't help. We have to remember. And I'm like, I get that. But can we get like a super strong sealant? Can we get something? We can't afford for this paint to chip Dalton. We need something to like really seal that in. So Josh is in the further. It's completely dark. It's very calm. And Josh calls out to his father. So at first he's met with silence. It seems that his father isn't there. But then he suddenly sees a light shining behind him, and it's his dad. He doesn't say anything. He just puts a little lamp down and the light grows really, really bright, and then he disappears. I can only assume that's him like moving forward or moving past, going to heaven. Josh grabs the lamp and is able to go back to his body. Dalton calls Renee to confirm that he's okay. They both know that they're safe. Everybody's safe. They're happy. Everything's going good. And Josh leaves the house the next morning, which means he spent the night. And he also got an invite to dinner. And it looks like things are looking good for their family. Josh goes to his car and we hear a woman complimenting him like, oh, lovely home. And I'm like, wait a minute, that voice sounds really fucking familiar. It's Elise. He recognizes her and he's like, I know you. She says, I know your mother. And I was like, oh my God, that means she like present day knows her. And Elise tells Josh that him and Dalton have a bright future ahead of them. And he gets in his car, and when he looks in his rear view, Elise has disappeared. So back on campus, we're in Josh's dorm, and everything feels like so much brighter, so much happier, more chill. Josh walks in just enough time to see Dalton's new painting, and he's excited that he's finally made the wall, and it is a painting of Josh saving Dalton from the first movie. I feel like with the red door, it gave us closure that we didn't know we needed, because at the end of chapter 2, it kind of felt like everything was like wrapped up in a neat little bow. Like the memories were going to be suppressed. It didn't feel like anything that we needed to resurface or go back to, unlike chapter 1, where it ended on this massive cliffhanger and you needed chapter 2 to feel completed. And with this one, and usually whenever there's like a continuation of a franchise, I feel like oftentimes it feels forced a little bit, trying to revive the franchise, especially if it's like years later. But I feel like this one, for the most part, was pretty seamless. I feel like there was that initial reaction of like, damn, you know, I thought everything was cool. I thought everything was sweet. Like they were such a happy family at the end of chapter 2. But I suppose time could change that. And I feel like additions that they did make to the movie didn't feel like super far-fetched. Like with Josh's father, there was no mention of his father in Insidious and Insidious chapter 2. I feel like with that omission, they were able to like get creative with it here. This one just seemed a lot more lighthearted compared to the other two. And sometimes those are the vibes. Sometimes it's nice to take things, you know, it's nice to have little fun scares. Sometimes we don't like those depressing scares where it's like, damn, this shit is sad as fuck, or damn, this shit is kind of depressing and fucked up. This one felt like more of a lighthearted, you know, boo, here's some spooky wookies, and then here's an happy ending. But yes, that's all that I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And I hope that if you astral project, that you only go to the world's most beautiful places. But okay, bye!
Don't take it from me, I'm the